Joining me on this edition of Arts Alive Books is Tor Hansen. Tor's book, The Tractor, is the story of Morakiwa, an island in the Pacific Ocean, which is changed forever by the arrival of American troops during the Second World War. When they return home, the Americans leave something that will change the lives of the islanders forever. They leave the tractor. Does the tractor represent the solution to all the problems of the island, or is it an evil Shai-Hathan, bringing nothing but decadence and corruption that must be destroyed at all costs? Perhaps the answer lies in finding the will of our granny, the semi-mythical ruler of the island. And to publish the novel, Tor set up Trebuchet Books, and he joins us on this edition of the show to talk about the process of writing, plus the pros and cons of self-publication. Welcome to Arts Alive Books, and welcome to our guest, Tor Hansen. You fetch up here in Liverpool, but you've got quite a international background, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about the various places in the world you've lived?
Well, I was born in South Africa, but quite early it became clear that the system there was not long-term viable. Well, certainly not for me. So I moved to London in 1976. I was there for 11 years, and then my job took me to Italy, 3 years in Italy, 3 years in Belgium, and again the job brought me to Port Sunlight in 93. So this is the longest I've ever lived in one place.
Cool. But all this time you maintained an interest in writing, didn't you?
Well, yes. I suppose everybody who ends up writing something that they publish probably has a stack of stuff that they didn't publish lying in a drawer somewhere. Mm. And I was obviously like that. So I'd written short stories and poems and started about half a dozen novels. Yes, this was the first one that really came to the point where I felt good enough to let anyone else look at it.
First one to see the light of day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I guess you have to blame Osama bin Laden for it, really, because it was brought to mind by the idea that Osama bin Laden and George Bush were both opposite sides of the same coin. They were both fighting for things that they believed in. Mm-hmm. They were fighting on behalf of a myth, of a way to see the world. And they were fighting over what you should do with technology. Was it a good thing? Was it something that you should allow to make you grow fat, that should be used to create the good things in life, or was it temptation? Mm. So that was really the birth of the book. And I guess when I started out, I didn't really know how it was going to finish. But in the end, I think it got to be the book that I wanted it to be.
It's a fascinating book. It's set on an island, this Morakiwa island, and it becomes a kind of arena wherein all these ideas are kind of tested out. And it's also got a really interesting first-person narrator who's operating in a language and a form with which he's not completely comfortable. Although the book is very, very readable, that becomes an issue in itself, doesn't it? The kind of writing process.
Well, I was lucky there, because I think that the fact that I was writing for somebody who wasn't a native English speaker meant that my imperfections as a writer contributed to the book rather than wrecking it, as it would if it were in a more colloquial environment. Since finishing and getting the book out, I've been working with various writing groups, and I think that my style now would be much more colloquial, and I wonder what I'd write if I rewrote that one. It's interesting to see the contrast between what you write and what people would expect in a particular context.
What I find fascinating about it is that it's kind of obviously a kind of arena, as I said, wherein these ideas are being tested, and we see the emergence gradually of a kind of mythology which is based around this notion of the tractor, which is a technological kind of something that's left over from a previous dispensation. So it takes us backwards in time to a kind of colonial era and thinking about the way in which kind of white Europeans impacted upon various kind of areas around the world. But it also kind of projects us forward in some senses. I was reminded of various science fiction books and so on. And it's got a kind of beautiful, timeless quality, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, although the book itself is set very precisely. The culminating event of the book happens on, it isn't mentioned in the book, but it happens on the 9th of September 2001. So it traces the story up to that, and then it offers you options as to how it might have panned out, and what actually happened is very similar to what happened in the real world. It starts a war on terror.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something we're still seeing. It's not something that died in 2001. It's ongoing. If you look at ISIS, if you look at the Boko Haram in Nigeria and things like that, those impacts are still going forward, and I don't see them stopping.
Now, like many of your writers, many of our guests, you had problems getting the book published, so you decided to address that yourself.
Well, it takes so long. The publishing industry is getting, in some senses, getting smaller as there are more books that aren't published by it. And the time taken to submit it and resubmit it and get rejected, and, the Harry Potter 20 rejections, goodness knows how long it took her to get that, to go through that process. So I started out thinking I would go through the 20 rejections, and I thought, but I just didn't have the patience, really. And in parallel, I was exploring self-publication, which was becoming technically easier as time has developed, and you've got resources on the internet, resources. At the time that I started this, some of the things that are available today weren't around. So I had to do a bit more than most people, than if you wanted to do if you started today. But it proved to be easier to get it out there, to get a physical copy of the book and be able to look at it. Marketing it, though, much more difficult.
Yeah. Would it be too pretentious of me to suggest that the kind of technological ease of self-publishing these days is similar in some ways to the role that the tractor plays in your book?
I think you're right, because what you're doing is creating a different type of market. The whole thing has turned over. More books, more. I mean, I don't know how good that book really is, but there are a lot of books out there that you could publish just about anything. And how do you find now the books that are worth reading? That's become the real problem. A sort of search engine for good books is what you need.
Yeah, there are certain mechanisms out there that we use, don't we, to kind of guide us. We read the papers, we listen to radio programs, and there's kind of certain people who are licensed in our society to recommend books for us. And there are other ways of encountering them as well. So what's down for your publishing company? Have you got any more books in the pipeline?
Well, we've got 3 out at the moment, this one, and 2 others coming from writing groups, locally, more or less. We've managed to get distribution for those books in the local area and the independent bookshops. So that's good. We've got another couple more coming. One of our authors, incidentally, is a prize winner, won the Fiddler Award for children's literature, and we've got, he's Mark Leyland. He's got a book called A Stronger Wind. Another is republishing somebody else's author, which we got really lucky, a guy called Michael Hunt, and a book called Matabele Gold. And we've got more books coming from that and other related sources. We're working with a lady who does local authors, fact and fiction, in Wigan for distribution and things like that. So I think it's got legs.
Great. And what about yourself? Are you working on anything new at the moment?
Yes, I've got a new one called Digitalis, which is in the final stages of editing. It's a book about the double-edged sword of computing taking over the world. How much money do you have in cash?
Well, that's rather a personal question, Tor.
No, but you probably, if you're like me, you don't have much more than 30 or 40 quid in your pocket. The rest is all a number in a computer in a bank somewhere.
Yeah.
And you probably think you own a house because another computer has a record of the fact that you paid for it. And you're expecting your supermarket to have groceries there for you to buy in 2 weeks' time. But they're depending on computers to come in. What happens if all of those computers go wrong?
Yeah, again, it's quite a familiar trope, isn't it? Even down to the new Terminator movie, where again the computers were so reliant on them. There's an interesting variation in your first novel, isn't it, where we see the development of a currency and how that works, the relationship between work in a society and these tokens that we develop to kind of. What second book syndrome, has that struck you yet? Was it easy to write, or did you struggle?
I wrote it easily, but trying to edit it, it's a very different type of book. And I've been working with with writers groups now, who give you a lot of criticism, which I thankfully didn't have with that one. But I think it's going to be a better book for that.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us and for telling us about your debut novel, The Tractor, which really is very compelling, and I would highly recommend it. Stay with us for part 2, when we'll be looking at free bookshops that have popped up all over Merseyside. On various high streets throughout the region, empty shops have reopened, offering free books for everyone. It seems almost too good to be true. The latest of these has opened in the shopping area of Central Station, Liverpool, and we dropped into the store to find out more.
My name is Adam Murdoch, and I am the lead volunteer at the Books for Free shop in Central Station. We've just moved in here. It's a huge shop, and we're still trying to get it sorted out. The basic idea of Books for Free is that we save books from landfill or pulping and give them to the public free of charge. There's absolutely the public don't need to do anything. They don't have to give a donation. They can do if they want, but the books are totally free, and you can take up to 3 and take them home and read them. There's no problem at all. We're trying to get involved with the community. We're setting up a performance area for people to come and do readings for us, poetry, books, possibly some music as well, if we're allowed to do that. We won't be charging anyone, so we should be okay. I've checked online for that. I've just bought 15 chairs for the performance area, and we're hoping to get some drapes to put against the wall, things like that, and a carpet to do a little stage. Well, I wouldn't normally volunteer in a charity shop, but I liked the idea of Books for Free and the fact that everyone that works here is a volunteer, nobody gets paid. So I like that. I wouldn't like to work in a charity shop where the manager gets paid. And although I'm technically the manager, and it would be nice to get paid, I would rather work here and not get paid because I like the principle. The books come from all over Britain. When I say all over Britain, most of them come from down south around London because that's the sort of catchment area. But we get a lot of ex-library books, but we also get a lot of brand new books that have never been used. So print overruns, that kind of thing. Shops that are closing down, bookshops that can't sell books or they've bought too many, given to us sometimes for nothing. But we also buy books. If you have a pallet full of books, there's about 1,000 books on a pallet, you can get £50 for that, and that would go for pulping or landfill. Well, it wouldn't go for landfill, but it would go for pulping. And we actually sometimes buy pallets of books to save them from pulping. We actually pay the £50 and buy the pallet. It depends on the money. We don't here in Liverpool. We don't have anything to do with that. It's all done in head office in London. They decide which books are bought and which books are taken in as donations. But it's quite good. A lot of people like the idea, and we get money left to us. People die, and we've been left houses and everything. So it all helps with the money. And there are people who love the idea who give us donations and whatever. So we keep going somehow. I don't know how, but we do. Well, the shop we were in on Ranelagh Street was closing. It's been taken over by a Vietnamese fast food outlet, and that's unfortunately that's what happens to us. If the shop is let, then we're out on arrear. But the landlords very kindly said that we could have this shop, which is ideal for us. This is the shop we were after. It's very big, and you could say it's too big for our needs, but we'll soon fill it up. We've just got a delivery of 15,000 books, so we will use it. Well, obviously we can get more books. We can have a performance area. We couldn't have a performance area in the old shop, but we're in the process of doing a performance area, as I say. If there's a carpet fitter around anywhere, we could do with the carpet being fitted. We're looking for a carpet or carpet tiles to do a little stage. It's not a proper stage, just a little area that we can call a stage, and then the chairs will go in front of that, and we'll have a bar stool, and we'll have people sitting on that, either as I say, doing poetry, book readings. Hopefully we'll get some local authors, and we've got a couple of local poets already who have said they'll do it for us, and just to help the community, get people known. That's the general idea. Well, it varies. There are people that only do 1 or 2 hours. There are people that do, I do 3 days. Jimmy's in every day, the other fella. He covers the days that I'm not in, and we have a volunteer that only does 4 hours. There are various people that come in to please themselves. We don't force people to come in, or we don't ask people to come in, except if it's necessary. But people please themselves when we come in. On Tuesday we had 6 in, and that was great because we had the delivery, so that was super. Very willing volunteers. It was very hard work on Tuesday, shifting 15 pallets, and there's 1,000 books on each pallet. There's about 40 boxes, so 15 times 40, heavy boxes of books. So we were very grateful for the help we got off, and the local security helped us as well. So it's a good little community here, good people. It varies. At the moment, we can't really judge it here yet because, as I say, we've just moved in, and most of the books are still upstairs. We are sorting them out gradually, but again, it's staffing. The other fella, Jimmy's up there on his own at the moment, so he can't do much. We send stuff down in the lift. We've got a little lift, a goods lift, so he's doing what he can, and if we get someone else in later on, I'll go upstairs and give him a hand. So it'll all be sorted, and the shelves will be groaning with books. Well, it's a community. There's a lot of libraries closing down, and people use us as a library sometimes. The people will come in and say, well, do I have to bring the books back? And we say, no, the books are yours to keep. But some people actually do bring the books back. They'll read them, bring them back, get more, And of course the advantage is that there's no fine. They can never be late with the books because the books are theirs. And people are very happy, you know, and it's handy here because people are in and out, coming out the station. So you get someone popping in for 2 minutes to get a book to read on the train and things like that. And obviously with Lime Street being just up the road, we get people coming in to get, you know, with cases that are going. There was a lady going down south, I can't remember where she said she was going. Leamington Spa. She was on her way to Leamington Spa and she wanted a book to read on the train. So she popped in and got a book and off she went. But it is, as I say, it's important because it keeps the books, it saves the books from being dumped, or they would be pulped to be used as like loft insulation or whatever. They wouldn't be reused for paper because obviously some of the covers would be board or whatever. They would probably use the books for loft insulation or other uses, you know, maybe for burning, making briquettes or whatever. And we don't like that. We don't like books being destroyed. When I was a child, I was always told never to write in a book, never to tear a page out of a book, never to destroy a book. And we work on the same principle here. We don't destroy books. We read the book, we enjoy it, and then we pass it on to someone else, and hopefully they enjoy it. And eventually, the book falls apart from being read so many times. Then you can pulp it, or burn it, or landfill it, when it's totally useless. Well, I think people are so surprised to get the books for nothing, you know, and they really appreciate it. And we meet some real characters, we meet some real interesting people. And it's great to see the kids in getting books. Sometimes we get kids and they're frantic getting the books, and that's great because it's, you know, the parents are encouraging the kids to read. And you can't give a kid any greater gift than the gift of reading, the love of reading. So, brilliant. That suits us very well. We've had people in and say, oh, can bring the kids in? And say, you bring the kids in and you get them to pick books. Yes, please. Kids are welcome. Everyone's welcome. And everyone counts in the shop. We've had people in with a baby in a pram, and I've said we can take 3 books each, and that includes the baby.
If you have any comments or suggestions for the show, please do contact us at artsalive@baytvliverpool.com. And we look forward to hearing from you. See you on the next edition of Arts Alive Books.